Hello, everybody. How's it going out there in Stream World? Hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday. Kicking the week off. I'm very excited to get started in just a moment here. But first, art supply check. Let's see if we've got everything we need. I've got my paint, I've got my pencil, I've got my paper, I've got my palette paper. The Rain, hello! It's good to see you over here. Thank you, thank you. I think I do have every little thing that I might need. So let's switch on over to the art cam and have a chill hangout. All right. Working with only natural light today, which is nice, honestly. I had the studio light on for a little bit and I was like, this will not stand. It is way too darn hot today. I've got the AC going full blast, pointed straight at me. I'm sorry if you can hear it in the background, but it is what it is, honestly. I hope everyone's doing okay out there, beating the heat. I'll put a few different colors down. I'm going to get, of course, my cobalt turquoise light, my Windsor green, a little bit of Prussian blue for those deep, dark shadows. And I might boost... I'll boost the camera up a bit to compensate. And then I'll get some permanent white, of course. And then some warm color. I think it's some of this permanent yellow deep, which is one that I don't use very often. I usually, you know, go for the primary yellow. But the yellow deep is like a rich golden color, which I think will work really well for this picture. I guess we'll see how that works out. And since this is summer vibes and I want to catch that sort of sun-drenched, almost 1990s feel, I'm going to put some Opera Rose pink on the palette. Considerably brighter than the other colors, but those will also brighten up when we mix them with the white. What else could we need? I might get a bit of primary yellow. Just a tad, a touch, a skosh. Goodness knows I have enough. I barely ever touch my yellow color. I try to work pretty evenly with all my different paints, but sometimes definitely get a lot more use out of one than another. Like I almost never use my black, so I have a lot of tubes of black paint because they come with the primary sets. But you know. All right. Now there is something that I want to test. And I actually don't know if it's going to work. I don't remember how it works, honestly. But it should. Let's find out. Okay. I need to do some community settings first. Because what I need to do is add Nightbot as a moderator. We'll see if this works. Because I would like to have my my channel commands back. That's something I miss from Twitch. So I'm looking into going back to good old Nightbot from days of yore. All right. Let's see if any of these work. Nightbot, where are you? Hey, there's Nightbot. Okay. We're in. So I don't have, you know, I've got enough exclamation socials for my social media stuff. So that stuff's in there. And then it has all the moderator stuff and, you know, all the other things. There's a exclamation poll, which should make a poll. I don't know how that works. I've never used it before, but we'll see. And I don't know how or when or where. I think it was there when I took it out of the pad, so it might be from the manufacturer, but that's totally fine. We'll be painting over it today anyway. But that's why I decided to choose this one today. So I'm going to get my reference image. And I'm going to draw a little tree. And when I look at a palm tree, you got to kind of really unfocus the eyes because there is sprawling masses of different sections of a palm tree, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So the first thing I want to do is kind of just draw like a wild shape. I'm kind of unfocusing my eyes and taking in this strange shape. The contours and curves. It is a little hard to see, of course, because I'm drawing very lightly with my watercolor pencil, but it will become very evident once I start going. And then I'm looking at the central point. So there's a central pivot where all of the branches connect to the tree. And then from there, we can branch out quite literally and have them all connect back to the main part. And I want to maintain kind of the lyrical quality of the palm leaves. They curve and they curl. And I really, really like that aspect of the inner sort of framework of the palm tree. So I'm going to do my best to keep all of that. Have them be smooth, sweeping curves. So that'll be the top there. And then the trunk of a palm tree can get really wild. They twist and they turn and they take an unexpected path. And then there's sort of I don't even know, I'm sure there's a biological term or a botany term for what's going on inside kind of the head of the tree, but it's real scraggly and brackish and almost pine conic in its makeup. Oh great, now we're gonna get are we getting false positives on timeout messages? Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm going to fix that right now. So as I said, this is my first time on YouTube using Nightbot, so it's a brand new, like, fresh setup, so I got to kind of bonk it with a stick and make it play more nicely with actual human beings who aren't trying to spam. So I'm going to turn off a few of these features. I'm turning off excess caps because I don't really care about that. I'm going to keep the links filter turned on. Excessive symbols I'm also going to disable for now unless it becomes a thing later on. Excess emotes, I don't really care one way or the other, so I will disable that as well. And of course I'll keep the words and phrases blacklist for now unless it does something really loopy. Alright, so that should be better now. Sorry for the spicy Nightbot. We'll work our way through gradually. All right. Now back to this tree. This gnarly tree. And also these larger pods of leaves. Now, of course, there's a lot of different types of palm trees. The one I'm doing today is very spikety. And it's really easy to get caught up on the fact that there's, hundreds of thousands of little leaves on a palm tree. Super easy to get caught up in that. But instead, again, I'm unfocusing my eyes and I'm looking at the bigger shadows, the bigger shapes. And so I'm going to go in and do exactly what I did at the beginning with that sort of big shape of the entire mass. And now I'm going to break it down into smaller sections. And those will be each of the big palm leaves. And a lot of these lines and details and sort of pencil marks, these will all fade away pretty quickly once we start putting down water and stuff. But I need all of the basics to be in place so we can get the feeling and the shape of the shadows. That's going to be the most important thing for this composition. And then down here we have a moderately flat. When drawing a complex shape, it's very easy to let your brain take a back seat, which you gotta walk a tightrope, kind of, because you have to, dumb down the shapes enough that you're drawing the big blocks and not getting caught up in the details. But at the same time, a person's brain can kind of autopilot after a certain point, especially if you're drawing things where you know really well what they are. For example, this happens all the time in faces, when people are trying to draw faces, especially early on in their drawing. They'll go, well, I know what an eye looks like, I'll just draw an eye, And that's not that's not a good habit to get into, because not all eyes look the same. In fact, eyes look wildly different from person to person. And instead, it's better to focus on what you actually see, the shapes, the shadows, the contours, and not what you think the symbolic idea of an object looks like. I remember watching a show, it was a British show called Art Attack, many years ago when I was a young man. And the host said, draw what you see, not what you think you see. And it was such a catalyzing moment for me with art. I didn't suddenly draw a lot better, but I understood something that I was never able to have be put into proper words before. Because that helps for everything. That's good perspective advice. People get, caught up in perspective and they think, that you get tired after a certain point. You're like, I know what a window looks like. I'm just going to step and repeat this window over and over. Not thinking about the curvature of the space and the three-dimensionality and how things tend to disappear over horizon or curves. And it makes, if you draw what you think you see, if you draw the idea of a window, it can end up looking weird and stiff and unnatural. Where even if you're drawing scribbles, as long as it is the approximation of the actual idea of the object or the actual form of the object, it'll read to the viewer as true, which is great. Which is why you get all those paintings that are a bunch of scribbles and scrabbles, and then you take a couple of steps back and it looks real. That's why. It's because they captured the shadows and the shapes where they're supposed to be, and then the human brain fills in everything else. Which is pretty great. When you realize that an audience can meet you halfway and you're not alone. So I'm putting in where some of those spiky spikes are. Some of the bigger blocks of shapes. Some of these bunches. And that pretty much gets us to where we need. And then I'm just going to mark out where the light and shadow are. Because it's a very appealing shadow. I'm exaggerating it in the painting from what I, see on the page. I'm pushing it into kind of a caricature. But that'll make it more dramatic, I hope. Alright. Now I'm going to get all my paint brushes. I'm going to set them right here. Make sure that they are nice and primed with lots of water. Lots and lots. Especially the ones I'll be using frequently later on, like my calligraphy brushes. I want to make sure that those are ready to go at a moment's notice. And the reason why I do this before and not during, unless I forget, which happens, is because when you're working with watercolor or gouache, sometimes you need to switch between things pretty quickly to maintain certain shapes or edges. So I just like to make sure that my brushes are ready to go at a moment's notice. All right. And now we begin. So let's go in with some clean water. And we'll do the sky first. Okay, and that's going to be that bright cerulean, that aqua, and the white. And we'll build a relatively loose mixture of that. And I want to start pretty dark at the top and work my way down to very light at the bottom. And the reason why I want to do that in this particular picture is because I really want to emphasize the highlights, the really bright colors, the sunlight colors on those leaves. And the best way to do that is if they have something dark to play against. I'm trying to get in these in-between areas as well because, of course, the light of the sun and the sky will shine through the leaves. So the leaves only take up so much space. So I'm remembering to get those in-between bits, but not go too deep into the pockets of where the leaves are. Just going around, and now I'm going to start adding more white to the mix. Okay, and now I'm cleaning out a lot of that. I'm thinning the color down so that I can add a little bit of yellow to get a nice bright green, pale green, I should say. And then I'm going to go into some of these spots where that green I want to be kind of effusive, a little bit glowy. And other than the highlights, this is sort of going to be the high key sections of the painting. The lightest bits that aren't fully hit by the sun's rays. But I want them to be just barely visible in the back. Now slightly darken that color with some more aqua and yellow. And now we add in some shadow. Paper towel, and we'll clean off that palette. Begin on the next pass. Hey, Vlad. Yeah, I'm giving YouTube a shot. It's very chill over here. Alright, and now we're going to move on from that into the light color on the tree trunk, and I'm switching to the calligraphy brush. A little bit of white, a little bit of pink, a little bit of that golden color, but mostly white. I want this to be pretty opaque. But still loose enough that we can move it through. And this brush holds a tremendous amount of water, which is really nice. So I should be able to make a relatively smooth pass. Just a touch more pink. Okay. And then alongside that structure, the shadow structure that we built in there, I'm just going to take a little bit of that blue and a little bit of that purple, and I'm going to mix it into the color that we already established on the page. We'll start down here. And I'm going to build up what I call the lightest part of the shadows. So these aren't, you know, the deepest, darkest shadows that are going to be there eventually, but they are areas that need to appear in the shadow to make it feel real, to make it feel natural. And I'm just going to dot that in so they can melt together as the water and paint is still wet. And then I'll take some of that sky color and some of the dark blue, mix in a little bit of that pink, and a tap of that sort of orangey. And we need to build this really far down, and then we need to tap it up just a little bit with some white. Hey, Red, how you doing? On your way home from work? Safe journeys? Oh, thank you, Colin. I really appreciate that. I do really love mixing colors together, both on the palette and in the painting itself. Doing a phase like this, a pass where I'm mixing with the paint that's already down on the paper, is always very satisfying, because I know that the paint and the water are going to take it in a slightly different direction than when I first put it down. So I'm just going to let those intermingle. Again, I'm going to be going back and doing much more shadow work as time goes on in this painting. Soften some of these hard cauliflower edges here. The leaf area should be relatively dry at this point. Definitely. Again, I got the AC blasting, so the air is being dehumidified like heck in here. So I'm going to be able to go in pretty immediately and start laying in darker shadows. So I'm going to start with a relatively simple mix of just Windsor green and then a touch of the yellow and a little bit of the pink, just to smooth it out a little bit and to saturate it, because that green, even though the green is really dark for Windsor green, it's punchy. It's really punchy. So it's good to kind of pull that back a little bit. And then we're going to go in and start to establish those dark areas. Of course, we have we have the natural light, not the studio light today, so apologize for any light discrepancies as we move through the stream. But my eyes did not want the studio lights when I started today. So it'll be a little dark, a little light. I can adjust on the camera as we go as well. So I know that down here I want it to be particularly shadowy, and that would be the case even if the reference image didn't necessarily have that kind of a feel. Only because I know compositionally, I want it to feel like the sun is very strong, so I want to feel like the shadows are very equally heavy in that regard. They're sharp. Again, not focusing on the detail necessarily right now, we're just putting in some nice beefy shadows. Now it gets more complicated as I go further up into the tree, because I want the light shining through, so I'm just dotting in more sparingly, except for this one passage right here where it is strongly dark, and then strongly dark up like this. and on this side as well, because the light is coming from this direction. We're reflecting that down here on the tree trunk. We know that it's really blasting in from this side. And you always have to remember when you're in kind of this section of the painting that it is a process. It's going to take a while to fully get everything in place, and don't panic if you're suddenly like, oh no, it doesn't look exactly like the photo, it doesn't, look like this or that, and it's, you just gotta be patient with it. It will come. As long as you keep those shapes roughly where they want to be. And this isn't even as dark as it's gonna get. I'm gonna get a little bit darker with the shadows. Not too much darker, because I do know that I want it to be a kind of sun-soaked painting. So I'm not gonna go, all the way to black with these shadows. But we will take it a little bit darker. I'll increase the blue factor a little bit here. All right. Now, how are we doing down here? Wow, it's already pretty dry. So maybe I'll do a second pass. I'll just go back and forth between the tree trunk and the leaves as I wait for each section to dry out. So I'm going to make a very deep Payne's Gray, which is a cool neutral. And I'm going to dot in some dark artifacts in the bark here. All right. And now to do the classic back and forth of shadows and highlights. So we'll dip down to below where we were before. Gonna need to clean off that other paint because it has white in it, and I don't want any of that getting in the mix. I'm going to build some very dark, desaturated green. Without a ton of water. That'll be the most important thing. Okay. Now I need to pay attention to where those shadows are. Hey, Pachi, how's it going? Welcome home, Red. No, we got a ways to go on this yet. I have only begun to summer vibes. Now, I'm not trying to draw in every single leaf on this palm. I'm just trying to hit the shadows. This is more... this is less advice and more a reminder to myself. But it's very key, because when you're doing something like this where you're just dotting in little bits and bobs, sometimes you can forget the goal. And it's a little hard to tell because my hand is out of frame, but I am using my pinky to stabilize my hand while I draw these repeated shapes. Makes things a little bit easier to handle. Hey, Nuri, thank you so much for the sub. So good to see you over here. Now let's get some sun on this tree. It's always such a long wind up to get to this part of the painting process, but it's very satisfying when you're able to start leaning in, adding those highlights and those lowlights. And with a complex shape like this that lets light through itself and has those kind of ambient occlusions within itself, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of hitting up the highlights and then going back in and balancing the shadows. What I really like to try to accomplish, it's not for me to say whether or not it's completely successful, but I think I do a pretty good job, is not overworking that balancing act. Trying to put just enough into it that you can feel it. And then backing off. Now there's a lot of light in this picture, and it is in abstract places. So it's really important to set up kind of the base. Get everything where I need it in terms of the shapes and forms so that I can go in at this stage without getting lost. The very, very lightest spots I won't be able to hit till the very end because I need it to be pretty dry at that point so I can go on with almost no water, just opaque paint. But I can do lots of little transparent passes on our way to that goalpost. And they'll fade a little bit because gouache does that. I mean, a light paint will dry to a darker color and a dark paint will dry to a lighter color because it is a matte finish. But if you go in with really, really dry paper and a pretty dry paint, you can get almost like an acrylic style opacity, which is what we'll be going for at the very end. So right now I'm dotting in the light shining through the leaves. Creating almost that dancing sparkle. want to increase the darkness of the sky at the top. I wasn't quite happy with how dark it is up there. So I'm going to go in with a more pure mix of that aqua and just a little bit of white. And I am happy with the tone at the bottom, so I'm going to try to do a subtle gradient halfway through. Now, luckily, the picture is broken up into sections thanks to the tree shape, so this shouldn't be as difficult to do if I was doing a full wash with a subtle gradient. But even then, it is doable. Just takes a little bit of fiddling. And it might even add to the energy of the tree to have little cut-ins like this. But I'm going to go back through with some highlights and shadow color. Just to keep my shapes right. Hey Jess, how's it going? Alright, now mix in a bunch more white. And get it to more of an in-between place between the two colors. And up here as well, I even want to reshape some of the tree here. Make it feel a little bit more dramatic. I can even go in and reshape where the leaves are. Here as well, underneath the tree, I definitely want to reshape this area down here. My goodness. All right. I'm going to say it's time to take a stretch. Let's go ahead and do a quick stretch, and then I'm going to get a drink and come right back to it so we can put in some more details on this piece before we finish it up today. Stretch it. All right. So I've got the newly established sky. Now I can go in with even more highlights and shadows to really punch this thing up. So I'm going to go back to my little calligraphy brush and do just that. So I got a lot of white in the mix here, so I'm going to, once again, just squeegee that away. Now, for these shadows, I want a little bit of color variance, and I know already that I want to put some kind of red, pink, orange inside the shadows of the head of the tree, so go mix a warm mixture for some of these deep, deep shadows. In fact, I might go full red. Let's see. Get just a smidge of primary red here and mix that with my Windsor green, and this becomes one of my absolute favorite dark tones. It builds down to a very rich neutral. I'm going to make sure it's a little bit on the warm side by adding in some of that orange golden color. Lovely deep, deep purple. I'm also, at this stage in the painting, making sure that I've taken out a lot of the moisture. So I want this mix to be pretty dry. Just enough water to help it flow. And I'll make sure that I've got a good amount here. Build my brush to a fine tip. Alright, now that I've got the darks re-established, I can go in and do a new pass on the light colors. It's a very chill process doing the back and forth between the light and the dark and building up a texture. It's one of the reasons why I love painting tree bark so much, is because it's pretty much that's all it is. Just going back and forth while trying not to lose sight of the overall, blocks of color and shape and value. So now we'll go back in with my big, bright, bold yellow. A little bit of that golden too, why not? Why not? And just absolutely the thickest consistency, almost no water. Very, very dry. And now with this really, really pure, it's like white with just an absolute touch of the primary yellow. I'm going in and putting some true highlights. Because there's pretty much no water left in this mix. So this will be all the spots where the light is peeking through. Did I decide to part with Twitch? It's not a full breakup quite yet, but I'm definitely testing the waters on YouTube. Mostly I want to build up my YouTube channel, just to have it for like full videos and streams in the future. And also, you know, Twitch is Twitch is doing some stuff lately that I'm not super psyched about. So, you know, diversify the platforms, you know how it is. So, yeah, for now just building up the channel and then streaming the other day over on Twitch. At least that's the plan for now. But so far, YouTube's been pretty nice. A lot more discoverability, I'll say that much. Now, I need the very last of this cobalt turquoise. I might have to get, yeah, I'm gonna have to get the tube squeezer for this one. Where did I put you? Tube squeezer. Lord only knows where that thing gets over to. Well, I don't know where the tube squeezer is, so I'm gonna have to pinch my fingers real hard on this one. See, I love the wide array of art supplies and materials that I've gotten over the years, but I'll be danged if I can't find any of them when I need them. I think the solution's going to be... For my next office, I'm going to design it out so there's actually like a lot of good cabinetry and stuff. Sort of make and do with the space I got for now, but it'll be much nicer if I have, at a glance and at a grab, all the stuff I need. So occlusion, bounced light. I want to take the sky color, mix it down with a little bit of white, and just a touch of yellow. So I can make some bounced shadow light in certain sections. I need it to be a little bit darker than this. Oh, you got one of the tube squeezers? It's so nice. It is a must-have if you're squeezing a lot of tubes. Because it's so easy to waste paint at the end of a tube. Unless you slice it open. Let's deepen that a little bit with the Prussian blue. And Prussian blue is nice because it also will dull the color down a little. The cobalt turquoise light is a very saturated color. Okay, now mix back up into the general sky color. And I'll put a few more gaps in the leaves. And now this is the point in the painting where I look at my palette, I look at what I have left, and I think, can any of that paint be put anywhere else? For color harmony purposes, can I move something around to somewhere else? The answer is usually yeah. I do have definitely... I've developed a pinky out habit. It's just so darn good for stabilizing your hand. Highly recommend. Just upping the contrast a bit on the light on the side of the tree. I really like the way that that dynamic looks. And I think I'm just about ready to call this done. I want to put some more little leaves back here. But that's pretty much going to do it for our painting today. We've got another much bolder but kind of similar thing that I want to tackle next week. So look forward to that for our painting day. But it requires priming. So I need to do that before the day actually arrives. And I definitely wasn't going to do it this week and forgot. So if you think that, forget it. All right, it's tape time. Let's see if the tape cooperates. Sometimes when it's been very humid in the office and then I run the AC, the tape gets extra tacky, which is a thing that is strange. I don't know why it does that. I guess maybe the glue melts if it's really hot and sticky out. And then the cold maybe makes the top layer seize up a bit. But either way, it's rude, but it didn't happen today. It didn't make things bad. So that's a win. Scored yet another W. Let's go ahead and sign this. One thing I do have is my signing pens right here. And it is the 27th of June. My goodness, where did June go? Man alive. A big thank you to everyone for hanging out today, continuing to help my YouTube channel grow. It's been going great. I posted a couple of shorts in the last couple of days, which has been really nice. And I'll continue to put up the occasional sort of painting demonstration. I always hesitate to call it a tutorial because it's just, I'm showing you my process like I do on stream, but in a more condensed way. But I'll keep on doing that. So please feel free to come on back. Like and subscribe, as they say. If you'd like to hang out again this week, I'll be on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EiffelArt, Thursday at the same time. And we'll be doing some more Copic Thursday madness, where the audience chooses the colors, and I gotta draw with those colors. It's always a good time. Very chaotic, but very nice. And I don't think there's any other housekeeping I need to do, so I'll just say thank you, mods. Thanks, Nightbot. You worked for the most part. I'm sorry for those whose messages may have been censored by Nightbot. They are overzealous, but they should be okay now. And I will see y'all on Thursday if you decide to come over, but if not, I'll see you on Tuesday next week for more painting. Thank you and goodbye. Stay cool, everybody. Or warm, depending on where you are.